Hello, all viewers. Welcome to the 66th Khelo Chess India team battle. So the battle will be starting in about 1 minute and 25 seconds, and we have some questions actually in the chat section from I think Saksham has asked few questions and Chess Views have asked few questions. So I'll be coming to your questions, guys. Just making just making sure that all the voice and video is working correctly. So let's switch to the uh, yep. So we have a new
Hello,
interface
all
today.
viewers. Welcome to
The 66th Khelo Chess India team battle. So the battle will be starting in about 1 minute and 25 seconds, and we still have. Okay, sorry for the echo. I think my voice is clear. All the viewers out there, just confirm once if the voice is clear to you. Okay, so I can see comments from Saksham, and I can see comments from. I hope guys you are able to see the video. Just you can confirm once. And yeah, let's check the first game here. So meanwhile, I'm just looking at the questions, guys. Manish Kapoor and Haido Hideo Kun DK is playing right now, Team Future and Prayagraj. So probably, yeah, I think nobody moved. Black didn't move. Let's go back to tournament and check the next game. Let's check the game between Suni Atharva and Saravan. So let's quickly check what happened in d4, knight f6, e3, g6, bishop d3, bishop g7, knight to d2, castles, pawn to f4, pawn to d6, pawn to knight to f3, knight d7, pawn to c3, pawn to c5, castles, pawn to b6, and then we have knight to g5, knight to e4. A nice maneuver of this knight. So knight takes, and I think knight can come to f6 now again to challenge the knight on e4. So queen f3 was played, and what if and what? Okay, so now threat is this knight f6 check and capture the queen on b7. So supporting this bishop is important. So queen c7 was played to support the bishop. There was another move to play bishop to a8, so that this rook will be supporting, and there is no threat of knight to f6. We can now threaten pawn to f5 from black side. So queen moves to h3, pawn takes d4, and knight to f6. This is a live position. So meanwhile, let me come to the questions section here. So in the questions section, we have in the comment section we have Nagpur Chess Warrior Saksham is asking to take their team back tomorrow. Yes, Saksham, we will be taking your team back tomorrow. Good to have you back. You have a very strong team, and we always like to get very strong teams in our team battle. So thanks for coming back. Then we have chess views question that let me just read out. Okay, so Chess Views wants to know how to make a team and play. So Chess Views, you can watch the video. I have a video over there which you can watch and you can create your team and you can play. Let me share you the video URL. Uh, just give me a minute. I'll share the video URL. And meanwhile, we have another question. Another hi. Yogaraj says hi. Yogaraj Mahale. So hi Yogaraj. Hope you are doing well, safe and sound at your home and enjoying chess. So nice game going on, guys. Here, I hope the window has been zoomed this time so that you don't get any disturbances, and the board is large today. You can also see our banner below, Khelo Chess India subscribe today. So that is a new banner that we have added. Just trying to add a few new things in the live stream to make it look a bit better as compared to what it was before. So okay, let me just share this link with. Okay, so yeah, let me just put it in the comment section. Okay, so chess views, I have given you a link which you can check the video and confirm if you are able to make the team. If not, I can help you out. So that's all from, I think, comment section. I do not find any more questions. So if you have any questions, guys, just let me know in the comment section. I would be happy to answer them. And so, few new things. First is that we have updated our ID. It's now Khelo Chess India. I used to do the live broadcast with Simple Player 100 on Leeches, but Simple Player 100 is not going to be used now. It is going to be Khelo Chess India, the new ID. And this is a nice move because it will just put a question mark on this bishop and queen pair, and it will exchange of this dangerous bishop. It will give some kind of relief for white to get rid of this mating bishop, because this was a dangerous diagonal which black was controlling from so long. And now after queen takes f3, I think we will be having this queen takes f3, rook takes f3, and probably then this, of course, this there are two open files which white can take advantage of. Bishop can go to e3, and then rook can come to f1 and try to put some pressure in the f file. But already black has played f6 to open up his f file. So mhm. Okay, interesting. So if pawn takes, bishop takes will be played now, so that the other rook can join the game from f1 square and try to attack these pieces. I think h6, yeah, h6 is something difficult because if bishop moves now, then there is a threat of this bishop takes d4 check, and then this rook takes rook is possible, but bishop might be supporting. So if bishop goes to a bad square like d2, then bishop takes d4 check, and this rook is not hanging. King can be played to g2 and support this rook, but of course, while black will get an extra pawn over here. So that's probably what, yeah. So this is the right move, not allow this bishop takes d4 check and block it right away with your bishop. So that's a nice way to play. Pawn to e5, challenging this pawn. I think pawn takes pawn is playable because then black will be having two pawns, because these two pawns actually d6 and h6 will be weak pawns, which probably can be attacked with the rooks and bishops. So I think rook g6 or even rook f1. I think rook should come very quickly in the game now because he has been aloof of the entire game. He should join the game very soon on f1. So nice game going on. Rook and bishop ending. And h4 is under tremendous pressure now. Rook takes, and I think bishop f2 will be played now to support this pawn. And rook can now be swinged to g1 square and then to g4 square, or even g6 square can be played then. So first check, and then rook g2 is playable. Rook should come into the game very quickly. Actually, you cannot just keep this rook away from the game. Yeah, now the d5 will be hanging, and now okay, f6 is hanging temporarily. King supports bishop, and now I think c4 is something that white would have to play. Now this e pawn is going to be the winning pawn for black here. It's the same colored bishop, so it's not easy for both the players. Both have to think a lot, and if there is any combination here. So yeah, rook takes. So black would have an upper hand if rooks are exchanged because black is pawn up. It won't be easy for him to win straight away, but still black I think will have slight advantage here. Yeah, this pawn should have been on this e6 and b5. So the pawns, black's pawn, white's pawns would have been locked on the b4 squares if the tempos are exhausted. And then black can target those pawns in dark squares, c3, b4, c3. So it's not easy for black to prove that he is winning here. I think b5 break has to be played sometime now. And now there's a nice trick of this d5. Okay, but d5 is not possible because of e takes d5 check first, and then this bishop takes bishop can be played. Yeah, b5 had to be played sometime. But I think this will create a passer on the a file. This probably is not the right time to play b5 because now a5 is going to lock this king down here so that this pawn is not pushed. I think pawn push is expected. d4, king to e5, and now I think king can come to d6. Yeah. So he has to remain in this magic square. Black king. This is the magic square for this pawn, a pawn. If king steps out of this square, then this a pawn can be pushed without any issues. Yeah, it's going to be a draw, I think. Yeah, it was a draw. So probably I think king e6 is not playable because this pawn can. So b5 I think from black side was not the best move there. Let's go to that position where b5 was played. Not this one. Yeah. So here actually, if black plays b5 here, okay, instead of bishop g5, bishop was so this was the position. Bishop had to be moved. Bishop, yeah, bishop a3. Okay, this was the position. So king c6, king e4, and now b5 here. Okay, so in this case, actually, there is a lot of chances for this pawns to get isolated and at least get some exchanges for black here. So if b5, if c takes b5, a takes b5, and pawn to a4, then uh, uh, probably king can come back, or probably will end up in the same position with this a pawn there. But yeah, we have this bishop to d2 also in that case, or bishop can go to now g5 and to d8 to control this a5 square. And b5 I think was I think we should have thought about it. B5 here, it's not exactly winning, but yeah, it could have been considered. But after this move, bishop d2, and then king to d3, bishop king to e7, bishop to e7, and when b4 came, it was b5 was not the right. This was not the right time to play the b5 move actually, because that helped black white to just create a passer on the a file. So probably even this a4 move, a5 move might have been okay because b4 and then king can go to d7. But then we have this bishop c1 and bishop e3 and attack this b6 pawn. But it was better as compared to this b5 move. Yeah, so this was probably the turning point of the game. Rest of the game, black played very well here. No issues anyway. So let's go back now and check the next game. So okay, anyone who wants to analyze their game, just let me know in the comment section. We will be trying to cover your game. Right now, I cannot see any comments in the comment section. Okay, so let's check the next game. It's between Andre and Veer from Karnataka Stunners. Andre is from Beat Mindano Chess Prodigy. So d4 was played. D4, knight f6, bishop f4, e6, pawn to e3, pawn to c5, pawn to d5, knight to f3, knight to d7, knight to d2, bishop e7, bishop d3. So both players, this is a kind of the London system setup. Still, white is waiting for this black c5 move, and then white is going to play c3 here after c5. So castles, knight e5, c5, c3. Yeah, that's where we are now. So pawn takes, and this is called as the Carlsbad pawn structure. I have explained it a lot of times. This Carlsbad pawn structure. This pawn structure, whenever occurs on the board, this is called as Carlsbad, and there are many strategies or many the way you have to play in this, how you have to attack. So general theme here is that white has to attack on the king side, not with the h4, but with the pieces. Knight to f3. This bishop is on h7, so this knight can go to g5. Queen can come to f3 and help it. and then the rook can come to this e1, rook e3, and then rook g3 can be played. And at the same time, black has to play e6, b5, and then try to play b4 and try to create a weakness on c3 square. Then put the bishop on b7 or a6 and rook on c8 and try to attack this c3 pawn. So that's the general ideas behind this Carlsbad pawn structure. But there are many other ideas also which you can just Google out. There are a lot of videos on the YouTube for Carlsbad pawn structure. Let's check what happened in the game. So knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, and this knight has is now dislodged. The defender of this h7 pawn is no longer there right now. So it has gone to the d7 square. And what will happen on the h7 square now? It's going to be interesting. So h4 was played first. H4 again. I think sometimes it's rook h3 and rook g3 can be played, or just h4, h5, h6 is pushed so that this weakness can be uh, taken advantage of. Queen h5, pawn h6. What would have happened if black would have played g6? Bishop takes g6, h takes g6, queen takes g6 check, and then probably we have rook to h3. Okay, and the idea is to just give this queen h6 check, king will come back to g8, and rook can give the check on g3, king will go to f7, and queen g6 will be a check and mate. So that would be the idea. So g6 was not possible here, and hence black played h6 instead of g6. And then queen g6 was played, h7 is now vulnerable. So f5 was played, shutting off this diagonal now. And I think bishop takes h6 is something which is queen e6 is also available. You're right. This is the best move actually, h6, capturing the e6 instead of the h6 pawn. And then we have king h8, queen takes d5, and black has lost actually most of his crew members from the central, for example, central pawns there, and now even the king is in a better position as compared to this king. As the ending is approaching, it's better to have the king near the center than in the corner of the board. So bishop to d4, pawn to b6, knight to f3, bishop to a6 check, king to d2, and now rook doubles in the d file. So bishop g5 is sometime it might become available if ng5 knight is not controlling the g5 square. So white has to be careful here. So sorry. So king was moved to c2, bishop to c5, rook to d1, rook to d7, and knight to e5. So knight now has nice squares on g6, f7, and I think rook can now come to e1 as well. Yep, and if this rook moves, for example, if when the after the knight is attacked, the rook, if the rook moves, then there are certain threats with this bishop takes g7 and the rook takes d8 also. They start coming into the game. That tactic might be available in the game. So king to c1, and then we have rook to b7, knight to g6 check. Let's wait here actually and check if there was any tactic here. I'm just wondering about this bishop takes g7 if possible, because the rook is hanging on d8 and we can capture the rook with the d1 rook. So bishop takes g7 is right now not possible because of this knight sitting on the. So white has won the game, but let's check what happened in the game. So let's quickly reach the position. This was the position, and then knight e5 was played. Bishop to e4 check, king c1, rook to b7, and now knight to g6 check, king moves to h7. So bishop takes c5, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, pawn takes c5, and rook to d8. So this is a beautiful combination, guys. And after this, I think this rook h8 is unstoppable, and that's why your black resigned. So a very nice example. Also remember that the outpost is one of the critical themes that we can learn here, because if you look here, this position, when I said that, yeah, this h5 move. H5 move is like stopping black's g5. Of course, king h7 has to be played before because the pawn is pinned right now, and then pawn push is stopped. But another thing that it does is that it creates an outpost on this g6 square. Now, outpost is a square from where your pieces can have a very good impact on your opponents. For example, if this knight is sitting on this g6 square, it is going to be the best piece on the board. So you have to create such outposts in your game, and this is one of the best examples of how an outpost has to be created. Okay, so this outpost was created after pushing the pawn. It stopped black's pawn push, as well as it supported the g6 square. From on the g6 square, this knight can go from e4 to e5 to g6, and Well, of course, it delivered the mating attack in the game, but this was a turning point, I feel, in the game wherein this pawn h5 was played. And then actually it was a mistake from black as well to just put the bishop here. Bishop should have gone to f6 so that this squares are controlled. This diagonal and e5, this diagonal as well. The e5 square is controlled, so knight takes e5 is not available. I think bishop b7 and then king c2 and bishop c5 here. I am not so happy about because it allows knight e5 then later in the game and knight to g6 instead of the bishop f6 is not possible right now because the king has moved. So if we just keep this piece back, what options did we have here? Did we have hmm, what options did we have here? We could have moved the rook here actually to just to make sure that there is a threat of this bishop takes f3. Then knight e5 actually is expected, and knight e5 I think then we can play bishop f6. If knight e5 then bishop f6, and if knight g6, so I'm saying about this rook d6, knight e5, bishop f6, knight g6 check, king moves to gh7, and then bishop takes f6, rook takes f6, and that was playable for black actually. And then we still have this bishop takes g2 move, then bishop can come back to f3 and can capture the h5 pawn. So a nice game, a nice example for all of us. All of us is it's nice example for me as well to get an outpost by playing the move like h5. Let's go back to tournament. Try to pick up the next game. Let's check this game between Prathamesh and Shubhra. Let's stay on this ending. It's a nice ending wherein there's a threat of this h2 is controlled right now, and there is also a threat of this rook d1 check. I think rook d1 check. Uh, Rook d1 check. Okay, I think rook d1 check, king h2, and then we have f3 check. King moves to pawn moves to the or okay. If you just go back, I think that's working for black probably. So this was a position. We have rook d1 check, king h2, then pawn f3 check, rook takes e5, and pawn f2. So this f1 queen is then unstoppable if rook captures the bishop. So rook takes bishop is not possible. He has to play pawn to so rook d1 check, king h2, pawn f3 check from the bishop, discovered check. He has to play pawn g3. White has to play pawn g3, but then this pawn can capture the rook. So I think this was winning for black, if I'm not wrong. You can correct me, guys. All those who are watching right now, if this combination is wrong, you can just correct me. This was winning for black. Rook d1 check, king h2, f3 check, rook takes bishop, and pawn f2. The queen is unstoppable on f1. So that should have been played actually. It was winning for black. But anyways, black played here bishop to c7, bishop to d2, and then king to f7, rook to f2, and king to g6. Now this pawn is going to fall. Yes, and that will lead to a pawn ups position for white out there. Will get definitely get a better results for white here because of an extra pawn. Rook takes, rook check, and king moves, rook takes pawn to h5, rook check, king to g6, and this is not going to be easy for either of the players. Both players have to be playing perfectly here so as to make sure that, yeah, now this pawn is critical. Now if king captures the pawn, then I think it's probably winning for white now because these two connected passes are going to be the winning combination for white out here. Yeah, check and probably then pawn to h4. If a2, then you can play rook to a6. Yeah, this is winning for white now. Let's wait and complete this game. Then we can go back and check the next game. Let me quickly have a sip of water, guys. Give me a minute, please. Yeah, I'm back. And I think this is a mating threat on g6 now. Yep. Yeah, now black has to go for these checks. Continuous checks. Yep, again check. Okay. Yeah, pawn g6 now. Yep. and black resigned. So very nice game, a good ending, execution of ending from white side. Let's go back to the tournament and try to pick up the next. Let's try to pick up a game here. Okay, let's try to pick up my Shakti's game. I think he's playing a game. He's playing from Khelo Chess India. So let's try to pick up his game. And he's playing in the Berserk mode. Let's quickly check what happened in the opening. It was, I think it was a Sicilian defense. So on e4, c5, c3, d5. Let me just refresh this page. Actually, it's, yep, sometimes the leeches create some issues with the replay of the moves. Pawn to d5. So yeah, so this is called as the Alapin opening e4, c5, and c3. This is called as the Alapin opening. I think d5 is one of the best options that black has. Another option is to play knight to f6, and pawn to d6 is also played sometimes. Those who play accelerated dragon, that is the dragon with the g6 move instead of d6, they like to play g6 here. So it's a very nice and aggressive opening. This is c3, and but there are equally very nice replies from black side also. If you want to surprise your opponent who plays Sicilian, you can learn this Alapin opening. It's very easy, not no theory, very less theory, guys. In this Alapin opening, Alapin Alapin, you can just Google out. Very less theory is there. You have to. There is a problem also that you have to play with an isolated queen pawn. Let's check what happened in the game. I will explain you with this example. So queen takes, and now knight f3, knight to f6, bishop to b5 check, knight c6, pawn to c4. So this is not expected. Generally, pawn to d4 is played here, but c4 is played by white right now in this position. So let's check what happened. Queen to e4 check, queen e2, queen takes, king takes, and then bishop to d7, knight to c6, pawn to a6, knight to c3, sorry, not c6, knight c3, pawn a6, bishop a4, and pawn e6, rook to e1, bishop to e7, pawn to d3, and castles, bishop to c2. Look at this bishop, it's just hitting its own pawn here on d3. Okay, so knight to d4 check, pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes, and knight goes to e1. So all pieces, white's pieces have been quarantined. They are not able to leave their homes right now. So pawn to e5, king to f1, bishop to d6, pawn to f3. Okay, rook to e8, and yeah, knight to f2 was played here. Okay, sorry, just a minute, guys. I think the system is a bit slow now. Yeah, knight. Okay, so this was a position, bishop to c6, and then knight to f2 and knight e4 was played. Knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, pawn to f5. This is again a very nice move because we know that this king is exposed on the f1 square. If we are able to open up this file here and try to attack more here, then I think it would be very nice for black. So a good move f5 here, e takes f5, rook takes f5, rook king to g1, rook doubles in the f file, and pawn to b3 now. So I think here we had, do we had any? Yeah. So rook f2 is one of the best moves now because of this rook takes g2 threat. So we have bishop to d1 and rook takes g2, and white resigned here because I think this is what white missed altogether. This bishop is there on c6 and it can capture the g2 pawn. So here actually there is no escape. So this is very bad position wherein you don't develop your pieces. You should always develop your pieces as quickly as possible. The more you take time to develop your pieces, the more are the chances of you to getting stuck into a bad position. Okay, let's try to pick up the next game now. Let's try to pick up any game from. Let's try to pick up this game. Okay, where did it go? It just disappeared. I'm just trying to find out. Yeah, let's pick up this game. Okay, so unusual is from Team Future, and we have Rajan Chola from Gujarat Lions. So let's try to find out what happened in the opening. E4, C6, Karokan defense, knight F3, pawn to D5, knight to C3, D takes E4, knight takes E4, knight to F6, knight to G3, bishop to G4, and pawn to C3, pawn to E6, bishop to E2, knight to D 7 pawn to d4, bishop to d6, bishop to e3, queen c7, queen c2. So two moves by queen here. I think this is something black might black might have to pay price for, because moving the same piece twice, I think it's a waste of move. But let's check what happened in the game. So knight to e4, knight takes, and knight to f6. Queen comes back to c2. Long castles and pawn to h3, bishop to f5, bishop d3, bishop to g6, knight to h5, knight h4. Again, I think it's not required right now. Okay, because that's what black wants. Black wants to you to exchange this g6 and get h takes g6 and get the open h file, so that if you castle, then you can be punished very soon with using this open h file. With this bishop on d6 will go to b8 and queen will come to c7, and then they'll try to meet you on the h2 square. So knight to e5, knight to d5, knight takes g6. Yeah, that's I think painful for white now, because this rook will become active. Okay, bishop d2, king to b8, pawn to c4, knight to b4, and I think he is going to miss the bishop now. The light square bishop should have been there on the board, but that's okay. So long rook d1, bishop takes, rook takes, and pawn to e5. Nice move, trying to open up the central files. Also, this rook to e8 is now possible, and I think later on even g5, g4 can be played very quickly here. So pawn to d5, pawn takes, and rook to d6. So white has got a passer right now, but it has been blockaded by this rook on d6. So black has to get more pieces onto this d file now, just to get sure that this d5 pawn is doesn't survive long. Okay, so castles was played, rook to d8, rook to d1, and was okay. Rook to d5 was not possible. So if the pawn would have been on h2, then rook takes d5, queen takes d5, rook takes d5, rook takes d5. No, it's not possible. I was just thinking about this queen even check if possible, but that's not possible. So let's check what happened. So queen takes a2 was played, and then we have queen e4 and pawn to f6. The pawn is now saved, but the g6 can now fall. Queen takes g6 is a simple pawn gain for white, and he doesn't capture the pawn. He tries to attack the queen here, a discord attack on the queen. So queen to b3 and rook to d3, queen to a2 again, and rook to d2, queen to a4, rook to c3. So now white is trying something else, probably queen to c4 and queen c7 check, and king queen c8 check and mate. Rook takes c8, rook takes c8, and check. Just unable to take the load of all the softwares that are running right now. Just give me a minute, please. Yeah, so I think we are good now. So here rook queen a1 check was played, and queen a1, king h2, queen takes c3, a free rook here. So that's a blunder actually, and miss by white. So rook c3 is actually a blunder. Actually, I was thinking that this is very good move, but yeah, even I missed this check on a1 and trying to attack the rook and the king at the same time. So probably this was a miss from white side. Then we have queen a1 check, queen to h2, and queen takes c3. And I think this is winning for white black now. So there is no point. White resigned, and only one move here which led to the loss. Rook to c3. Rest all the game was very good. Probably king h2 should have been played before to avoid a queen a1 check. And then we can try for some adventures of rook c3 or rook g3. Try to attack the g6 pawn and likewise. So let's go back to tournament now. So Joseph and King Nilesh are playing right now. Let's try to check their game. Sicilian defense it is. E4, C5, knight F3, G6. This is the accelerated dragon. All the players who want to learn some aggressive openings from black against white's E4, this is one of the good weapons. The accelerated dragon, this G6 move after C5. There's accelerated dragon, there's hyper accelerated dragon, and there is the main line of Sicilian dragon wherein d6 is played and then g6 is played. But here d6 is not played. The idea is to play the d5 directly if possible in the game. So let's check what happened in the game. You can learn this opening, Sicilian accelerated dragon, to have a very good aggressive repertoire in your uh, in your preparation. Bishop g7, pawn to d4, pawn takes, and pawn to d6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop to c4, castles and castles. So d6 was played here, d5 was not allowed because of this bishop c4. And then we have knight to c6, bishop to g5, pawn to h6, bishop h4, pawn to a6. So this is called as Dragendorf, if I'm not wrong. This is the combination of Nachdorf plus Sicilian dragon, which is called as Dragendorf. It is a combination of both of these lines, and you can try to find out this as well. That Dragendorf, how to play a6 b5 move, is played here. So a3 was played, b5, bishop to a2, and now bishop to b7. So both bishops fianchettoed, and they are now pointing towards the center. Knights are also placed perfectly. Now it's white's choice which pawn he will push, e4 or d4, to get the advantage. Now probably e5 is one which will be in full favor, but knight d5 was played first, knight takes e4, a free pawn, and rook to c1. Probably this rook should have been on c1 actually, not this rook e1 played, but if rook was on c1, then the rook takes c6 was possible. Rook takes c6, bishop takes c6, knight takes e7, king to h8, and knight takes c6. So rook had to be on c1 to play knight d5. That is actually a premature move, probably a bit of played in bit of hurry. But yeah, it's a nice one to nice combination of this rook takes c6 is available for white. So rook to e1 and knight goes back to e f6, and now rook comes to the c1 and g5. Uh, did we have rook takes c6 now? Rook takes c6, bishop takes c6, knight takes e7, king moves, knight takes c6, attacking the queen, and then bishop is also under attack. So queen can be played to then c7, and okay, so game is over. But let's check the game here. Okay, let's quickly go to the position. Yeah, this was the position, guys. Sorry, this was the position. Yeah, so rook takes c6 might be possible here. We need to check this one. So bishop to g3, and now knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight to a5, and bishop takes b7, knight takes b7, king to queen to e2, and pawn to e6, and pawn to h4, pawn to g4, knight to d2, and pawn to h5, knight to e4, and now bishop takes d4. Now there would be a nice diagonal for this bishop. Probably this bishop can come back to the a7 square, and but this g5 is now a new weakness, because ng5 and queen c2 are going to be very good threats for white. First of all, the mating threat is there on h7, and secondly, white can intrude the 7th rank and get a good attack on the 7th rank also. So bishop d4 was played, and now queen d2, bishop g7 back, and then knight to g5, pawn to d5, rook to c7, and knight to d6, and now rook to c1. So all pieces are now into the game, and black is now struggling actually to get at least gets his rook going on. So knight to f5 and bishop to f4, knight takes h5. So black is going for material versus the development. He is not developing his rooks. He's just going for the extra material right now. So queen to c2, and knight comes back to f5, pawn to g3, queen to f6, pawn to b4, queen to b2, queen to c6, queen to f6, and few repetition of the moves here. And bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, and rook queen to g6. But still, if you look, these rooks are in a very bad position. They have not been developed at all. That is not how you should play, guys. You should get your rooks going, and then bishop to f4 was played, pawn to h5, h4, bishop f4, and pawn to h4. I'm just thinking, how can we use this position for white's benefit here? Is there anything that we can do? Probably rook can also come on the c6 square. There is no immediate attack anywhere for this rook, but I think something has to be there for the white in this position, because white's pieces are better developed as compared to what black has over here. So probably bishop e5 was a good move, and rook coming back to the, or even king g2 can be played now. Pawn takes, and then the rook can come to the h file. If pawn h3 check, then king can just sit on the h2 square. So queen e1 was played, pawn to h3 was played, king h2, And now this f3 is the outpost for this knight, where it's just intending to go there and live its happy and peaceful life. So queen to d1, knight f6, f3 check, king h1, and now queen e4. So this mating threat, I think it's unstoppable. If I'm queen c2, yeah, knight to g5 check, queen takes, knight takes, and now f2 is hanging. So king to g1, supporting the f2 square, pawn to a5, pawn to f3, pawn takes, and king h2, pawn takes b4, pawn takes b4, king to g7, and bishop to e5 check, pawn king to g6, and now I think this pawn should have been cap. No, this is, yeah, it could be captured, because if rook h8 check is not available because of this, first f6 will be played, and once bishop moves, then rook check. But we have this king h3, king g5, g4, but f5 I think is, and then king can capture the f3 pawn. Yeah, so there was escape for white here. So king h3 was possible. Pawn to f2, and now I think black will start pressing for the win easily. Free bishop, and I think that's where white resigned. White played beautifully in this game, but unfortunately, because of time, probably he lost this game. But it was a nice game, an example of Sicilian accelerated dragon, but d6 was played and d5 was not played. Let's go back to tournament, guys, and try to find the next game. Uh, which game should we pick up next? Okay, so we have got the request from Yogaraj 14. Let's try to find Yogaraj's game if he is playing any. Yogaraj 14. Okay, Yogaraj 14 is online and he's playing a game against Ara VMJ. Okay, let's check their game. E4, it was Sicilian defense. Okay, Sicilian defense, E4, C5, knight F3, pawn to G6. Again, this is the accelerated dragon that Yogaraj is trying to play. Pawn to d4, pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, knight c6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, bishop to e3. So this is an ideal example of accelerated dragon, guys, wherein this knight c6 and bishop g7 is played very early in the game. And then we have knight to f6 and pawn to f3, castles. So the problem is that sometimes white is tempted to push the pawn. Right now it cannot be pushed because this knight is supporting, but there are some lines wherein knight g4 is possible. Right now it's not possible. Queen is attacking the g4 and pawn is not pushable because of this knight. But in some cases, when the e5 is available, knight g4 actually loses this pawn on the e5 square. So f3 was played, and now castles. So bishop c4, and then queen to b6. So this is again a very nice move, but this is queen is attacking the b2, the poisoned pawn, and queen is also attacking this bishop. So if knight moves to f5, then queen takes b2 is possible here. But yeah, white played queen d3, supporting everything and not taking any risk. So queen takes b2 and rook to b1. So black has captured the poisoned pawn here. Will he be able to digest this poison that he has just drank from the b2 pawn? So rook to b3, queen to a5, rook to b5, and there would be a lot of attack on this king now, or queen now. So queen to d2. Uh, okay, let me just, yeah, queen d2 was the position, and now knight e5. So here actually queen d2. I'm just thinking that can we play e5 here? E5, knight e5. Yeah, it's not working right now. And knight d5 is also one of the possibilities that can be. The knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, and this knight again has to move to e5 square. So queen d2 was played just to avoid all these forks, and knight e5, bishop to e2, and knight to c4. Bishop takes c4, queen takes c4. Now c3 is weak, and queen d3 was played to offer an exchange. Queen takes d3, pawn takes d3, and pawn d6. Castles, pawn to b6, rook to b1, and bishop to a6, trying to attack this weak pawn on d3 now. So rook moves and bishop takes d3, a free pawn, rook to d1, and bishop to c2, a free bishop, knight takes c2. That's the losing move for black here. Black was playing beautifully, but I think black won this game. I'm not sure how, but black was bad. Black managed to get a win out of this. Bishop d4, rook to c4, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and rook to d3, rook to c8, And I think, yeah, so black was able to recover this piece, the c3 piece, c3 c2 knights. So knight to d5, rook takes c2, and here was knight takes f6 working for white. Knight takes f6, e takes f6, and rook takes d6 was playable. Knight f6, e takes f6, and rook d6. I think that was playable and still could be considered uh, how white can progress this one. A2 is hanging, of course, and probably white was worried about giving away these two connected passes to the black. So hence he played rook to a3, supporting the a2 pawn. And then we have rook c1 and king f2, rook 8 c2, the another rook, second rook coming into the game now, king g3 and bishop e5 check. Okay, here I think even rook to g1 was available, trying to attack this g2 pawn with the rook and from c2 and the rook from g1. That was on. It could not be defended after attacking from g1. So that's fine. Bishop e5 check was given. f4 was played. Bishop f6 back. Knight f6, e f6, and rook takes d6. Rook to c3 check, and we have king g4 and a free rook here. That's the blunder, guys. This is the blunder which lead to loss of white here. So rook takes c3 was probably the move here. Rook takes c3, rook takes c3, king to g4, and then probably we would have rook to c2 attacking the g2 pawn and the a2 pawn. One of them can be captured, and that is how I think the game would have progressed. But anyways, this free piece was given by white here. He completely overlooked this position, and this rook was given for free. So let's go back to the tournament and check the next game. So that's the game for Yogaraj. We have analyzed your game, Yogaraj. Hope that will help you. And we can just try to pick up the next game now. Still 14 minutes remaining in the tournament. So let's try to pick up the game between yeah, this one, Veer and Ganches. So Veer is playing from Karnataka Runners and Ganches is playing from Chennai Chess Club. Chennai Chess Club is a new team, guys. So welcome Chennai Chess Club to this team battle that we have every day. Good to have you on the team. So good to have you in the battle. D4, E6, knight to F3, pawn to D5, pawn to E3, and knight to F6, bishop D3, bishop to D6, castles and castles. So it's symmetrical opening. Knight to D2, pawn to C5, pawn to B3, knight to C6, bishop B2, pawn takes, and queen to C7, pawn to E3. Knight B4 is annoying in most of this positions just to stop prophylactic move. It's called as a prophylactic move. To stop opponent's plan, you're making some move. It is called as a prophylactic move. Prophylaxis is another concept that you can learn. That is a middle game concept. You can Google out prophylaxis. It's a very nice concept. That is something we teach kids or we teach the intermediate players in order to stop opponent's plan. Okay, so prophylaxis is something that you can Google. So a3, a5, queen e2, and then we have h6. After h6 we have knight to e5, knight pawn to b6, pawn to f4, and knight to e7, rook to e1, bishop to b7, rook to f3, rook to d8. So all white is doing is just developing his king side, putting all the pieces here. Rook is in the open file. Probably now knight can come to this g4 square exchange with the f6 knight, and the queen can. So white won this one. But yeah, let's go back and check the game. Yeah, so yeah, rook h3 was played here, knight f5 was played, pawn to g4, knight to e7, and pawn to g5, pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, bishop takes e5, pawn to x6, pawn to f6, and now this has exposed white's king. Look at this white's castle, black's castle. There are no pawns there. It's completely exposed. And if we go back couple of moves, pawn to g5, pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5. This is the critical move. Look at white's king. He has exposed his own castle, but he has got a tremendous attack for this sacrifice that he has made of his pawns. So pawn to breaches g5. Now this is a defender. This knight on f6 is a defender, and that bishop takes e5, pawn takes f6. I think this is something okay. So the reason is that If bishop takes f6, then we have rook check, h8 check, king h8, queen h5 check, king to g8, and queen h7 check and mate. Hence, that was not possible. Let's keep this back. So what defense was possible here? I cannot find any defense coming from black side. He has to give this piece anyhow. So bishop takes e5, pawn takes f6, pawn takes f6, and now queen to h5. There's unstoppable mate on h7 as well as h8. So both mates cannot be stopped, and f5 was played, and queen to h8 was check and mate. So a very nice game, an explosive game, attacking game from both the players, but white was the one who won the game and giving us a very short and sweet game of just 22 moves. You can check this game, guys. This is a very nice game. A nice example of how you can attack on the castle king using your own pawns as pawn storm. Okay, similar attack we had seen in one of my videos wherein one international master from Iran. He is just 16 years old. He created this beautiful attack and he has defeated one of the GMs in his game. So that was a very nice example. Right now, Gujarat Lions are on 122. Then we have Team Future on 108, Karnataka on 105, Beat Mindano Chess Prodigy on 102, and Chennai Chess Club on 102, Prayagraj on 95, Chess Blasters on 81, and Golden Castle Chess Club on 68, Khelo Chess India on 58, and Avi Chess Club on 21. So a very nice tournament going on, guys. Last 9 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. Let's try to pick up one of the games. We have Sibuna playing today from Khelo Chess India. So let's check Sibuna's game. Sibuna has played e4 and Sibuna is playing from black side here. He is 2300 rated player, guys. He's a very nice player and he's playing in the berserk mode right now. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d3. d3 is a close Sicilian wherein you don't want to expose your all pieces and kings to black's attack. So bishop e2, bishop g7, bishop e3, castles, queen d2, knight c6, bishop h6, rook to b8. Right, and now is to just play b5, b4 and attack this queen side. So h4 and b5, h4, h5. So this is like a pawn storm on both the sides. The one who reaches first, one who strikes first is going to win. So knight takes h5, rook takes h5, and g takes h5 is not possible, guys, because if g takes h5, then we have this beautiful move queen to g5, and then the mate on g7 is unstoppable because this bishop is attacked by this bishop on h6 and queen on g5. There is no piece who can support the bishop on g7, and it's going to be a check and mate. Okay, so let's go ahead. So pawn to b4, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and then queen h6 check, king to f6. So the king has started its march. I think queen, okay, so yeah, knight to d5 check, king to e6, and we have knight g5 check, king to d7. So king has escaped. Was there any way to lock this king here? After queen h6 check, king to here actually knight g5 was playable, and if pawn to e6, then we have knight h7 check, king moves, knight takes rook. At least some material could have been recovered here. So I think knight g5 was a good one here, probably. Knight g5 and knight d5 is the threat with king d4 and then knight f7. Then queen can come back to f4. A lot of threats after knight to g5. Yeah. So knight d5 check was played. King d7, the rook to h1 back, and knight to d4. King to d2, pawn to e6, and knight to e3. Queen to a5 and knight to c4. Now this knight is nicely sitting on the c4 square, attacking the queen, not allowing this discovered check of b3. So queen to c7, and now knight takes h7. Rook to d8, knight f6 check. So the game is over. Black won the game. Yeah, black won the game, but let's check what happened there. So bishop a6 was played, pawn to b3, bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4, queen to a5 again, king to d1, and pawn to b3, queen to d2, pawn to b2, and I think a2 is now, okay, yeah, a2 is now capturable. The rook is hanging there, so king e2 supporting this rook by the h1 rook, and then we have rook to h8, knight to h7, and rook takes h7, rook takes h7, and queen to b8. I think this is winning now for black. Black can win easily and get a queen and have a beautiful win out there with a satisfying victory for black. Sibuna adding So of course the rating has not changed because there's a huge difference between both the rating, but additional point for the team here. So yep. So still we have 6 minutes remaining, so we can take a couple of games here. Uh, Okay, so some people are complaining in the so that others are cheating, but yeah, then you can. So if you're playing on leeches and if you find that some player is cheating or using engine, in that case you can always try to report that player to the leeches. He or she might get banned for that ID, but it's actually it's very bad actually for chess that people are using engines here. So this is a Nimzo Indian defense, guys. D4, knight f6, c4, e6, and knight c3, bishop b4. This is the Nimzo Indian, and bishop g5 is the Leningrad variation of Nimzo Indian. It's a very attacking variation wherein h6 and g5 is played by black, and the game goes very aggressive on the king side. So castles now. So pawn e3, pawn to d6, knight to f3, knight d7, bishop d3, pawn h6, bishop f6, knight f6, and castles. So pawn to b6, and that we have uh, pawn to a3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, bishop to b7, knight to d2, and pawn to e5. We have pawn to d5. We are just shutting white is just shutting down this diagonal here. So I can see a comment from yeah, I can see a comment from Saksham that tomorrow 2600 rated player is going to play from Nagpur Chess for years. Happy to know, Saksham, that such a high rated player is going to play our tournament. And yeah, you have complaints about other players, but yes, you can always report to the leeches. You have to present a game wherein you thought that cheating was done, so leeches will try to find out the problem, the cheated moves or the average centi-pawn loss, and they'll try to get the player banned as quickly as possible. So rook to e1 here, and white I think has is nicely launched. This is the live position, so white is nicely launching his attack now. He is going to get a good attack on the king side because of his open f file. Queen g3 now, and still it's a mystery. Rook f7 is not possible. Queen is not hanging on e5, so that's okay. Probably knight can now go to f3 square. Knight f3, but yeah, c3 is hanging then. Yeah, so difficult position for white right now to decide what to do. On e4 is one of the choices, but that will just shut down this diagonal. So queen c3, now e3, and oh, rook takes f7, a sacrifice here. What is the idea behind this sacrifice? G6, right, right. So black king is now exposed. So it has been driven out of its castle. Can it survive this slaughter by white here? Probably he must be able to survive this one because there are no pieces actually left for white who can help him in completing the mating attack. And everything is, yeah, I think there is not no pieces left on the board which will help white here. So Saksham is saying 22nd move knight f3 is, what about that move, Saksham? Knight f3, you want to suggest some other move there? Bishop d7, knight d4, queen takes e3, and I think the knight is now gone on d4. Okay, it's a check and mate, a simple check and mate. So let's go back to his 22nd move. What Saksham is saying is knight f3. What happened at knight f3? Yeah, knight f3 was probably not the best move. Probably e4 is what I was thinking here. E4 might have helped white to support the c3 pawn with the queen on g3, and then this rook could have swinged over to the F file to attack in the on the attack the F7. Yeah, yeah, that probably was the way to play. So last 1 minute and 17 seconds. Let's go back to the tournament and yep. So let's not pick up the new game now. I think there are no new requests. So again, some there are some allegations and people you have to report it to leeches. We cannot do anything against these players that you think are are cheating right now. So you have to take it up with the leeches. You have to complain to leeches. You have to give their IDs. You have to give their games where you thought that cheating happened. And now we have this is the final, probably the final first place. Look at this: 136, 135 and 135 all three, and 127 not far away. So all top three teams are neck to neck, guys. I think Prayagraj will just win by a small margin here. I'm just waiting for this last 20 seconds to finish off and then to find who is going to win this tournament. Is it going to be Gujarat Lions or Prayagraj future GMs? If couple of wins from Gujarat Lions, they will quickly jump onto the first position. Last 10 seconds. Team Future on 135. Can team move to the second position? I think that should be all for today, guys. That should be the final ranking. Yes, so that's the final ranking, guys. Prayagraj future GMs have won this tournament with speed like from Prayagraj, winning the or leading the team with 24 points. Then we have Gujarat Lions on second place, total score of 136, and King Nilesh, he has scored 24, top scorer from the Gujarat Lions. So congrats to Nilesh. Team Future, we have Hidden Kuk TK. This is the Sri Lankan team. He has scored 26 points. Congrats to him. And the team score is 135. So very close call for 1, 2, 3 positions. Then we have Chennai Chess Club, the new team today, guys, and they have the Sarvana from Chennai Chess Club is leading with 25 points. He's the team's leader today and topping the team with 25. Congrats to him. Team finished on 127. Not a huge difference between these positions and the fourth position. So it was a close call for top five teams actually. Karnataka Stars today finishing on 123, beat Mindano finishing off 119. Chess Blasters, Suni Atharva again leading from Chess Blasters on 97. Then we have Khelo Chess India, My Shakti as usual performing very well on 26 points. It is similar to what these people have, these players have scored. So a very good score by My Shakti. Congrats My Shakti. Then we have Sibuna again, extraordinary performance by Sibuna and Mr. Green, Swapnil Pote and Rodrigum, Shubu, and then Street 12 and Rahul. So congrats to all these players who are in top 8 from Khelo Chess India. Golden Castle Chess Club, we have RM Linda, 20 points, and Abhi Chess Club, just 5 players playing today, and Aditya scored 11 points from this team. So that's all from today's podcast. We have individual point of view. We have Mai Shakti from Khelo Chess India. A great performance today by Mai Shakti, finishing on 26 points. In the least number of games you can see in top three, he has scored. I think this is a continuous winning streak for him. That's why he is on first place today. And it was a beautiful tournament, guys. So right now there are no new questions, no new requests. If you have anything, you can ask in the comment section. I'm still online for some time, so just make sure if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends as much as possible, and don't forget to like the video, guys. I cannot see likes coming on the video, so please like. And if you have any questions, just mention in the comment section now, right now, immediately. I would be happy to answer them. I'm there online for a few minutes, couple of minutes, and just trying to discuss nothing much, but the lot of online tournaments going on, and make sure that whenever you're playing any cash tournaments, the time format is such that people should not be allowed to use engines. For example, you can play only those cash tournaments which has 2+1, 2+0 or no increment, so that the use of engines will be minimized. So that's one of the tips from my side. And as there are no questions, I waited for a few minutes for the questions, but there are no questions right now. So I think we are good to close for today. That's all from Kilo Chess India. 66th Kilo Chess India Lichess team battle. We will meet tomorrow again at 9:30 p.m. if internet doesn't break down, which happens frequently in my area. So bye bye and take care. Make sure you like the video, guys. Don't close the window.